Sister, why is there a bad room? Because some people are bad. That's the kind of top-notch writing that you will only find in a film like The First Omen, written and directed by Arkasa Stevenson, based on the characters by David Seltzer, and was also written by Keith Thomas, who did The Vigil. The Vigil, that was actually really, really good. Unfortunately, he was also involved in Firestarter, Twisted Firestarter, the remake that nobody fucking asked for. Oh, Firestarter, check out my review of that if you want to see how much I hated it. Also, yeah, the story is by Ben Jacoby, who did a movie called Bleed. This movie should have been bled out. I'm sorry, am I tipping my hand already as to how I felt about this movie? But yes, The First Omen is a prequel to, wait for it, sit down, relax, don't do it. If you want to go through it, relax, don't do it, is a prequel to The Omen with Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, directed by Richard Donner, co-starring David Warner. Also the iconic line, "Look, Damien, it's all for you," and music by Jerry Goldsmith. And yeah, you know, back when devil possession movies or movies about the Antichrist were actually good. Even though I fully recognize, and I did do a retro review of this, you can check that out, that The Omen, if you take Gregory Peck out of it, all due respect to Lee Remick and all due respect to the director, the musician, or the guy who did the music, composed the music, and David Warner getting his head chopped off. Sorry, spoilers. The movie's been out for quite a while. Take Gregory Peck out of it, and you're not going to have something very good. So here's his prequel without Gregory Peck. Considering Gregory Peck has been dead for a number of years, that would have been rather difficult. But honestly, a reanimated corpse of Gregory Peck would have certainly lent more credence to this than anybody else in this movie, which is sad. Really, really, really sad. Because the actors certainly tried. I just don't know what they were trying to do. Dig themselves out of the seventh circle of hell? Basically, it takes place in Rome, 1971. Just a few years before The First Omen. Well, okay, The First Omen movie, because this is The First Omen. It's very confusing. When it comes to horror prequels, when it comes to prequels in general, when you know where the story is going to end up going, as long as you get some decent setup, you could have something that could turn out to be pretty good. When it comes to horror movies, I mean, there is Ouija, Origin of Evil, that actually wasn't all that bad, but really wasn't necessarily the best because the first Ouija movie was terrible, and they've somehow done a lot of Ouija movies. Google how many Ouija movies or Ouija-adjacent movies they've done, and just be shocked, be absolutely floored. It's like a Rolodex of stupid. But yeah, when it comes to horror prequels, you're not going to get a lot of good. Spin-offs, remakes, you're not going to get a lot of good. In fact, Annabelle Comes Home is pretty much like the only good horror prequel that's come out in the last 10 to 15 to 20 goddamn years. If you can think of a better horror prequel, let me know in the comments, please. So, you have a character of Margaret played by Tiger, free to do what she wants any old time. And she is somebody that was basically welcomed in by the church. She was a problem child, and now she's in Rome to take her vows. And this sounds awfully familiar, because considering I just watched Immaculate recently with Sydney Soma Sweeney, I'm pretty certain that maybe my opinion might have been colored a little bit. And check out my review of Immaculate if you want to know what I thought of that. But you do have Father Brennan, which does tie into the First Omen movie, or the Omen movie. God, this is really confusing to word it that way. Ralph Ineson, who is terrific. In The Witch, in The Green Knight, Ralph Ineson is terrific, even if you don't give him much material to work with. Like in this abomination of a dumpster fire of a goddamn horror prequel. Yeah, I hated The First Omen. I absolutely hated this. I fucking just wanted this movie to basically be bled out, gutted and bled out right in front of the goddamn audience, because that's what it fucking deserves. This movie is fucking terrible. I can't even mix words. Absolutely fucking terrible. The jump scares are terrible. The gore is okay, I guess, but none of the setup really amounts to much of anything. You know where it's going to go, and the thing is, it's 2 hours and it feels like 3. This movie drags, really drags, and even though Nell tries to make it work, she is a good actress. At least I assume she's a good actress, because to put yourself through shit like this, you gotta be somewhat good. She just doesn't give it much of anything to do with a character like Margaret, because we know where the character arc's going, and that's the problem when you do anything where you know what the end game is. You have to give people something worth going for. Again, Annabelle Comes Home is not perfect by any means, but has atmosphere and life and energy. I really want to know what the fuck 20th Century Fox was thinking. Oh yeah, let's just do this and let's hack this out and let's have a recreation of, a few death scenes and everything from that, and let's just slap the first Omen label on there and let's call it good. We don't have to worry about Gregory Peck coming back from the dead and killing us, even though he should have. Yeah, it's terrible. I will shout a few other characters. There's Sister Silva, Sonia Braga, who's been good in other stuff. There's Bill Nighy, the science guy, who plays Cardinal Clarence. He plays a cardinal. He should have been sacrificed like a cardinal, as far as I'm concerned. There's also a guy named Tawfiq Barham, who plays Father Gabriel. Might as well just be putting a neon sign saying, hey, remember when we did this bear in the other Omen movie? And the Omen 2 was not good. Omen 3 was really not good. Omen 4, they did 4, by the way. And they remade the first, the original Omen movie. God, this is getting confusing. They had Julia Stiles in it. Not the only bad horror movie that Julia Stiles has been in. Orphan First Kill Anybody. One I do want to shout, though... the character of Luz. Maria Caballero. Fucking hell, she's beautiful. My God, I wish she was given more to do here. She was good. Very good. I need to check out more of her stuff, because she really, she commands the screen. I mean, just look at her. How could you not look at her? Charles Dance is in this. This movie should have danced off a goddamn, pier and with cement shoes. And then there's Sister Angelica, played by Ishtar Curry Wilson. They named her after one of the biggest box office bombs of all time. Okay. So, yeah, the plot, such as it is, involves Margaret trying to figure out what's going on with this church. Ralph Ineson's father, Brennan, is trying to get research papers to prove that this girl, Carlita, Carlita's Cabana, Carlita, it's like Santina and Santino. Carlito and Carlita. If you get it, you get it. You are mind-numbingly confused if you're not a wrestling fan. He's trying to get some stuff from, some research, figure out what's going on with Carlita, and take care of something in particular that Carlita might be tied into. And I'm trying to keep the plot as vague as possible, but the thing is, none of the twists, none of the shocks shock at all. You can see everything coming from a mile away, which doesn't mean that a horror movie is awful, but in the hands of somebody that clearly has no idea how to direct something. And maybe he did and he just didn't have his vision realized, but you have Keith Thomas involved again. The Vigil, pretty good. Firestarter 2022, not so good. But The Vigil, watch The Vigil instead. Ignore the fact that the first Omen exists. Just watch the first Omen movie, aka the one with Gregory Peck. Because at least he lended credence to it. Everybody in this movie just felt like they were walking through the goddamn motions, as opposed to tiptoeing through the tulips, through the mint juleps. I think they were all drinking heavily. But yeah, that Sister Why Is Her Bad Room, because some people are bad, and then there's this one scene in the trailer where, Margaret's doing this, it's not real, it's not real, it's not real, it's not real. What's not real? Who said that? And it's bad jump scare noises and all this stuff. And I'm sorry the gore doesn't work. And it takes forever to get to its point. And its conclusion just lands with oh, wow, I can't believe that they revealed the stuff that we knew where it was going. And that's the problem with horror prequels. It's really hard to make something good. And if you're not even going to try to make it somewhat entertaining, then it's not going to work. And the thing is, it felt so mind-numbingly lacking in anything creative that you couldn't help but just say, this is the best they could do. If this was not the first draft, God, I'd hate to see what the other drafts were. Fucking hell, this was bad. Wasted Ralph Ineson. Again, Maria, have to shout her. Beautiful. It does not look good. It looks like shit. The music is not good. There's stuff wrapped around like protests going on in Rome for worker compensations, also because people are tired of the church. That ties into something I'll get into in the spoiler section. This movie is just abysmal. This is one of the worst things of the year. It's one of the worst horror prequels of all time. And I'm sorry, I don't care about the amount of effort that everybody went through. I'm sure Nell really tried hard with her role, but it just was for naught. It was a terrible movie. fucking terrible. Let's check out the spoilers now. Yeah. So the idea basically is the church is doing genetic experiments to bring about the Antichrist, and he'll summon his dark forces, so people, but just enough so people will come back to the church for help. That's your twist. Well, that's one of the twists. Ralph Ineson says that, and I'm just imagine he's thinking, this makes no sense. I'm a really good actor, and you're expecting me to do this. Fine, you're paying me money, whatever. Really, Ralph Ineson deserves so much better than this. He's Father Brennan from the first movie. They couldn't get the other guy that played Father Brennan because I believe that man, Patrick, died in at least the late 80s, possibly early 90s. So then they do the "it's all for you" line. I'm not going to recount much of the plot here because it's step for step what a lot of stuff, what happened in the first, or the original Omen movie, which, again, I want to say isn't necessarily great, but has great parts to it. I quote some of that, and I could watch that movie again. I'm probably going to watch that movie again to wash the taste out of my mouth of this goddamn bullshit. But you have Sister Angelica, who's all freaking out, and she's like clearly touched by the devil or touched by bad writing, and she's going to hang herself. And instead of hanging herself and swinging through the window, this time she set herself on fire. So basically what they're saying is, yeah, remember what happened in the 76 version? Well, this is what happened earlier. So that lady was a fucking amateur. She didn't even light herself on fire. Yeah, if you priests want to bring back the devil, bring the Antichrist, and then bring his minions and do all this, and how does that make any sense? How does that make any sense? This girl, Carlita, is clearly one of the experiments that lived. They had a lot of experiments that failed, and they were using a lot of women and a lot of stuff basically because they're trying to resurrect the Antichrist. They're trying to resurrect these, they're basically trying to resurrect a boy. So he can be the Antichrist and be Damien. Yeah, geez, they reference that at the end, by the way. Margaret feels an attachment to Carlita. Part of the reason, Carlita has the mark of the beast, the 666 stuff, in the roof of her mouth. Right there. And then there's this picture that's been going around that was taken out of this file of a couple sisters and a pastor or a priest holding a kid that has a 666 mark somewhere. And it just so happens that Margaret has long hair, and Margaret has been targeted by the church and was a problem child and all this stuff. And it turns out she had the 666 thing there, and then 6666, whatever. She had a bunch of numbers there, and she instantly starts freaking out because she had one night, Uno Noche, as 98 Degrees once said. That was an actual song they did. A bunch of white guys were trying to do something in Spanish. Didn't work. Menudo, more like Morano. Should have workshopped that. Basically, Margaret ended up having, relations of some kind with a guy a little bit earlier. Paulo, I think is what his name is. Apollo. He went up like the Apollo mission. And Liz wanted to have her go out. And again, I just want to say, Maria, my God. And nothing against Nell. She was fine. She actually really looked smashing in some outfits she wasn't very comfortable in. But she isn't able to talk to this, Paulo guy. And then suddenly he gets hit, referencing that you need to look for the mark on the head. Then he gets pinned against this wall and she tries to hug him. And she's just hugging his upper body. And that might have been good if there was anything like, if I gave a shit about any of those characters. And if the movie hadn't already lost me with a hilarious opening. Where a guy, gets basically, there's this, like this glass shattering and all this stuff, and nobody's head gets cut off, but a pipe comes down and slices right through the back of his head, revealing just how little brain power went into the writing of this particular movie. And, oh yes, it's like I couldn't help but make a thing. Did he at least go painlessly to shreds, you say? Margaret then ends up trying to channel the lady from Possession. By the way, this is a great shirt. I got this from Redbubble. Look for this design. I can't remember the artist right now. I should have wrote it down, but great stuff. Really great stuff. Worth the price. You buy a few shirts on there, I think you get a discount. No, I'm not sponsored by Redbubble, but more of the money goes towards the artist. Nevertheless, she tries to channel the lady from possession badly and tries to shard out the kid. And then she ends up basically going through all this torturous stuff. And then there's this and then two kids are born, a boy and a girl. And then they're going to stitch her up. She stabs Bill Nye in the necky. Nye. I don't know what the fuck I'm on about. And everybody involved just decides, we're going to burn her. And then Luz stabs her. If you're going to go, having a beautiful Italian woman stabbing you wouldn't be the worst way to go. I would be for it, perhaps. Monica Bellucci, call me. Anyway, it seems like everything's dead. Everything's all fucked. They're going to just burn all this stuff down and, I guess, burn the convent? But Carlita saves Margaret and the little kid. That, by the way, ties into the other movies, in a way. I'll just say that much. But she's going to be the one that's safe. And they're living in a mountain, in a mountain, like in the lights of a northern town. Hey, nah, 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 nah. And Ralph Ineson shows up and says, they know you're alive, by the way, so they're going to come after you. And, oh yes, they showed a picture of Gregory Peck and said, he's a U.S. senator, and they're going to have an accident, and then we're going to present this kid, and he's going to inherit their wealth and take over the world. Eat shit, the first Omen. How dare you? How very dare you? How dare you? F. It gets an F. I could have been a lot meaner, and I probably will be, when I talk about this on my worst movies of the year list. Because if this isn't in my top 10 with how abysmal this was, then I'm in for a long year. So yeah, F. Agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.